A Toronto scientist says he could revolutionize development of the Alberta tar sands. A Saskatchewan promoter says he could revolutionize the family car. They both want to do it with hydrogen. And as Terry Malevsky explains in tonight's special report, they're the latest ideas in an explosion of research into the fuel of the future.
It runs the space shuttle as an exotic fuel. It's available everywhere as water. You just run electricity through water and you get oxygen and hydrogen, the fuel of the future. As cheap gasoline runs out, clean, abundant hydrogen is supposed to take over and run everything.
Within 5 years, assuming the government attitude towards the technology was proper, it would be available to the consumers.
How much does it cost you to run this car?
On a cost per mile basis, it costs you $1.80 a gallon equivalent. So for $1.80, you get enough ammonia to go as far as you would on a gallon of gasoline.
With gas at $2 a gallon, Greg Besiner thinks he's got a winner. His car runs not on pure hydrogen, but on ammonia, which is hydrogen mixed with a little nitrogen. And that turns the gas into a liquid fuel that he can carry around. The exhaust is clean, it's just water vapor, so why don't we all drive hydrogen cars?
Well, the good news is we do drive hydrogen cars. The bad news is that in fossil fuels, that hydrogen comes all mixed up with carbon, which makes gasoline, which is dirty and expensive. But the real problem is that there are no hydrogen gas stations. There is no mass production of hydrogen. The savings are just not good enough to justify a whole vast new national network of hydrogen stations.
In private automobiles, hydrogen fuel cars are at least 20 years away and probably 30.
Dr. David Scott runs the University of Toronto's Hydrogen Institute, where they're looking at better ways to use hydrogen, not by building lots of little hydrogen stations. Scott wants to build one big one to get a much bigger bang out of the fossil fuels that we have left. Specifically, the Alberta tar sands, trillions of tons of energy locked up in sticky sand. This is a hydrocarbon, but with too much carbon and not enough hydrogen. It takes endless refining to get rid of all that carbon and make a liquid fuel.
What we do now is we dig up this much fossil fuels with the tar sands, let's say, and you, one way or another, throw out carbon until you have the right hydrogen-carbon ratio. Much better, economically, environmentally, and everything else, to dig out this much fossil fuel and add hydrogen from falling water or nuclear reactors or whatever and make this much gasoline. Do you see what I mean? Now, the impact of that is quite astounding. We can literally get between 2 to 4 times as much product from a given barrel of whatever it is that we dig out of the ground if we add non-fossil hydrogen to that.
Scott's idea is to make the hydrogen by splitting water with electricity in giant electrolyzers like these, which could run on surplus or off-peak electricity from a nuclear plant. The slumping nuclear industry, of course, loves the idea. And so do the people who make the electrolyzers at this booming Toronto company, which is already a world leader in its field.
We're doing business in 86 countries at the present time.
Sandy Stewart of Electrolyzer Limited exports his units all over the world. He's convinced that hydrogen would be better used upgrading the tar sands than trying to run cars.
As general transportation, it certainly won't occur until the other resources have diminished. But I think we can see indirect uses of hydrogen in the making of the fuels, the conventional source of fuels that fit into the system as it is today.
For the politicians, though, all this futuristic hydrogen talk has been merely interesting. Marc Lalonde has driven around in Greg Besiner's car and said he liked it, but that was a year ago when Lalonde was in charge of energy, not finance. Today, there is still no federal support for the car or the tar sands scheme. For the politicians, the hydrogen future all seems very far away.
But it's getting closer. There's going to be a big meeting in Edmonton next March to take a serious look at this hydrogen plan for the tar sands. The theory is that if you can get the troubled nuclear industry together with the troubled tar sands industry and all the hydrogen buffs, and then they start making oil and a lot of jobs, that could get the politicians' attention. Terry Malevsky, CBC News, Toronto.